My name is Emily. I'm 34 years old and live in a quiet suburb, about a 45-minute drive from Seattle. Every morning, I brew myself a cup of strong black coffee, check the news headlines, then drive to my office, which is conveniently located just a few blocks away from home. I'm the CEO of a tech startup focused on innovative education solutions, a job that's often misunderstood, especially by those who think working in tech means fixing computers all day. My family never really grasped what I do, or maybe they never really cared to. To them, I've always been the odd one out, the one who dressed simply, rarely wore makeup, and was always engrossed in my work or attending some conference. My sister Laura is the one they're proud of. She's 4 years older than me, and has always been the golden child in their eyes. Beautiful, charismatic, and always the life of the party. I've always been the odd one out, the one who was always overshadowed by Laura's brilliance. Even in family gatherings, I was just a faint presence behind Laura's spotlight. During holidays or special occasions, relatives would gather around her with praise. "Laura, you look stunning in that dress." Or, "Laura, your new boyfriend's a lawyer. Impressive." And me, if anyone even remembered I existed, the line was always, "Emily, yeah, she's doing something in tech, I think." They spoke as if I were a footnote at the bottom of the page. I used to think if I worked hard enough, if I stayed behind the scenes and carried the load, then one day my parents would finally see me and be proud, just like they were of Laura. But no, all the attention, all the expectations, all the compliments, they were always hers. And me? I was always distant, serious, hard to talk to. They never knew I'd stayed at the office until midnight, handling a crisis for a project worth nearly $3 million. They never knew I'd co-founded the company with 3 college friends and built it from scratch. When people ask about my family, I just give a faint smile and say we haven't spoken in a while. It's nothing. Not because I'm hiding something, just because there's nothing left to say. We haven't talked in over 3 years. No texts, no calls, no birthday wishes. Just silence. Like a broken line nobody bothered to reconnect. I used to believe family was the place you could find yourself, the place you could always return to. But one day, on my mother's birthday, that belief shattered. It was early April. I had just secured a major partnership with an educational institution in California. I planned to take a few days off and fly back early to help my parents prep for Mom's birthday, like I always did. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to help out, like always. When I called to let them know, it was my dad who picked up. "I'm planning to come back home. I'm going to be there. I'm going to come back early. Let me know if there's anything you need me to pick up or prepare," I said. I still remember his voice, not angry, just strange. A short pause, then he cleared his throat. "Emily, if possible, don't come home this year." I froze for a second, thinking maybe he was worried I was too busy with work. "It's okay, Dad. I've already cleared my schedule. I really want to be there, and I can't wait to see you this time. But I do have a plan to do. My dream is to get a job in the company." "Okay. I'll buy the car. It'll be all right. You don't need to worry about it." When I got home, I thought I'd be welcomed. I was stressed out. I thought about the way I seemed to live. I said through clenched teeth, "Are you saying I make the family look bad? That I shouldn't come home because I'm an embarrassment?" He didn't take it back. In fact, he doubled down. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." Then he hung up. No hesitation. No second thoughts. My apartment went eerily quiet. The coffee cup in my hand had gone cold. I stared into the empty air like the world had cracked open with a single sentence. I didn't cry. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. I was no longer part of the family I had tried so hard to hold together. I sat there in my familiar armchair by the window. Early spring sunlight pouring through the white curtains, unable to warm the chill inside me. My father's words echoed again, clear and final. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." I looked down at my hands. My fingers trembled, not from anger, but from something deeper, the breaking point. I had always thought that even if I'd never be loved like Laura, at least I was still their daughter. Turns out, I wasn't. I stood up and walked to my desk. Without hesitation, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. Auto payment canceled successfully. No alarms, no warnings, just silence. Just like how I'd always existed in my family. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was angry, but because I kept thinking about how everything unfolded, about what my father said, about how my entire family was willing to cast me aside, just to impress Laura's new boyfriend, a man I hadn't even met. I'd been compared all my life, but this was the first time I was publicly rejected, as if my existence was an inconvenience. Mom's birthday came and went. I didn't call, I didn't send a card. I didn't post anything online. Not out of spite, but because I couldn't pretend anymore. At exactly 5, as I sat on my balcony sipping peppermint tea, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then let it go dark. A message came in right after. Emily, why is the power out? Can you check for us? I set down my tea and opened the curtain a little, then shut it back. I turned my computer off, then said, yeah, probably not. Even the phone is ringing still. I think there are no problems with the internet. Riverside, my phone will be ready to go up to 10 with one number. Come, and I can be sure I'll be able to win all my money. My wedding is so soon. My turn is in 10 minutes. I thought I was a little bit drunk right now, but I was right. What's this on my phone? I thought I was going to rush a weekend. Should be able to cross the bridge if I want, or do it out of necessity. And I know I've been there for a year, but I must have been. But I took the whole ceremony seriously for the entire year. I felt like I lost everything. I'm ultimately broken because I was too much, and Mom is almost in tears. What's going on? I picked up my phone and typed. 3 weeks ago, Dad told me if I insisted on coming home, I shouldn't call him my father. I'm just doing what he asked. If this is inconvenient, maybe find someone you're not ashamed to introduce. I didn't send it. I deleted it. Not because I regretted it, but because I knew, no matter what I said, they'd only hear what suited them. I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. My little apartment was still and quiet. No complaints, no judgmental looks, no demands. The next day, Laura left a voicemail. Mom's been crying since last night. Do you know how important yesterday was? My boyfriend met the family for the first time, and everything got ruined. You're so selfish. I listened to the whole message, then turned off my phone. For years, I hadn't been selfish enough. Now it was time. I opened my work email and checked the weekend operations report. One subject line stood out. San Francisco staff, transfer to Seattle, awaiting approval. I opened the attached list, skimmed through the names, and then I stopped. Alexander Hartley. That name made my heart skip a beat. I remembered it because of him. Whereas, I thought I was gonna kill him, but I didn't. I was gonna kill him, but I didn't. I was gonna kill him, but I didn't. Emily Warren, CEO. I let out a small laugh, just a reflex. The world was smaller than I thought, and I knew what was coming had only just begun. I sat still in front of my laptop, hand resting on the mouse, my chest hollow, as if someone had taken a piece of my memory I'd clung to for too long. Nearly $20,000, 0 cents. Every cent of it paid by me, month after month, without reminders, without delays. And yet, not once had they said, thank you, not once. I scrolled back through the payment list, the same lines repeating. $210.50, my electricity. $155, my water. $275, my internet and cable. Month after month, like I was their unpaid family accountant. Unseen, unacknowledged, forgotten. I remembered the last phone call with my mom, about a year ago, when she called around midnight, just to say, Emily, the bathroom pipe burst. Can you call someone? Laura's on vacation with her boyfriend. You're the only one left. You're the only one left. It sounded harmless, but it was a bitter truth. I wasn't loved like a daughter. I was just the solution, when the ones they truly cared about didn't show up. And now, being told not to come home, because my presence didn't look good, I finally understood. All these years, nothing I did was ever received with love. I was only remembered when a bill needed paying or a problem needed fixing, but when I needed something, no one was there. My phone lit up again, a message from my mom. Emily, I know yesterday got a little tense, but if you could take care of the internet bill, that would be great. Claire is trying to keep things calm with the guests. I stared at the message like an outsider. No apology, no mention of the cruel rejection. Just another request. Like always, I set the phone down without replying. I stepped outside onto the porch, sitting in the wooden chair under the fading April sun. Seattle wasn't warm yet, but the crisp air somehow made me feel clearer. I thought about Alexander, Laura's new boyfriend, and now my incoming employee. The irony. My family excluded me from Mom's birthday because of him. I was so sad, I couldn't think about it. I was so worried. It wasn't what I had imagined, but it was what I felt. But I didn't want to have anything to do with him. And I picked up the phone and called. I opened it. It was a phone call. It had been 3 years. It's been an hour since I've sent a text message. I've sent a message. The person on the phone said it was from me and she'd left. I tried to connect the number to my debate. I could hear her voice. I made a phone call. I made a phone call. It was a short one. I couldn't recognize her. I have no idea who it was. This call has just never been heard again. I don't think I've even seen her. It's been so long. A polished resume, exactly the kind Laura would go for. Educated, established, charming on paper. I looked at the attached photo, something familiar, then I remembered we'd briefly met at a conference about a year ago. He shook my hand and politely called me CEO Warren, but neither of us made the connection, or rather I never cared enough about Laura to know who the man beside her was. Now I had a choice, approve the transfer or deny it, but I knew I didn't need to do anything. Life had already written the perfect script. I just needed to sit back and see what would happen when Laura found out her boyfriend reported to the sister who embarrassed the family. The next day, Alexander arrived at the office. He stepped into mine with a folder, his face slightly tense. When I looked at the photo, I saw a picture of Laura, and a picture of the man who was standing there with the photo. I looked up, his eyes paused on me, then widened in shock. "Emily?" he asked softly. I smiled faintly, calm and composed. "Welcome to Innovate 8. I'll be reviewing the entire financial plan for this quarter. I look forward to working with you." Alexander froze, his face flushed, then turned pale. No one in my family knew I co-founded this company. No one had ever asked what I really did. They just assumed I was some little girl, and they would say a good boy, but at the end of the day, they were trying to trick me. I said nothing more, just slid the contract toward him. Alexander took it and quietly left the room. I leaned back in my chair. I wasn't happy, I wasn't sad, I just felt like the wheel had finally turned, and this time, I didn't have to say a word. The truth had spoken for itself. The morning of my mother's birthday, a thick fog hung in the air, making everything look blurred, like the world itself was bracing for something to unravel. I poured myself a strong black coffee, sat by the window, and stared at the empty yard. I didn't plan to do anything. No texts, no calls, no birthday post. I just wanted things to play out exactly as they were, without me. At 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. First message from Mom. "Emily, sweetheart, I think the power's out. Can you check for us? It's an important day." I placed the phone face down on the table. Same tone, sweet, gentle, like nothing had ever happened. Like I hadn't been told by my father that I embarrassed the family and shouldn't show up. 15 minutes later, a second message. This time from Dad. "Still no power. Water's not running either." "Is something wrong with the power?" I asked. "Payments. Call the provider now." Short, cold, no concern. No mention of me being excluded from the party, just a command, like I was still their logistics manager. I sighed. For 3 years, I'd never missed a single payment. Electricity, water, internet, cable. I canceled them all, one by one, the night my father hung up and severed everything. Because I was hard to introduce. On the very day Laura was introducing her boyfriend to the family, the house was in chaos. No electricity, no water, no internet, exactly as expected. By 11 a.m., the messages came flooding in. "Mom, Emily, please, I'm begging you. Guests are arriving. Can you just help this once? Dad, no electricity. We can't cook. Where are you? Take care of this now. Laura, seriously, Emily, today is special. Mom's about to cry. There's no internet. I can't call anyone. I'm losing it here. Can you stop being selfish?" I leaned back. My coffee had gone cold. The texts didn't make me feel vindicated. They didn't satisfy me. All I felt was emptiness. A quiet, unwavering emptiness. Then the phone buzzed again. A video call from Aunt Margaret, the only person in the family who still sent holiday messages, even if I rarely responded. I hesitated, then answered. Her old kitchen came into view, lit only by a phone flashlight. "What happened? You've never missed your mom's birthday. I know you have your reasons, but say something." I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "My dad said I made the family look bad. Told me if I insisted on coming, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. What do you think I should do after that?" Aunt Margaret froze. Her face changed in an instant. In the background, I heard noise. My mother sang loudly. "She's probably just sulking. No one would be heartless enough to do this." Then, a sharper voice. "Laura, Alexander's almost here. Someone call the power company already. I can't believe she did this to us today." I gave a slight, joyless smile. Aunt Margaret heard everything. She didn't defend anyone, didn't say a word, and then, unexpectedly, the screen shifted. A new face entered the frame. Alexander. Same neat suit, same polished expression as in his resume. He stared at the screen and blurted out, almost involuntarily. "Emily." Everyone went silent. "You're Emily Warren, the one who runs Innovated." I nodded, eyes steady. A long pause. Then Alexander turned to everyone in the room. She's my direct superior, and the one who approved my transfer to Seattle. I'm her subordinate. Stunned silence. Laura's jaw dropped. My parents froze. No one said a word. I calmly replied, "Hope your introduction today goes well." Then I ended the call. After the call, I set my phone down without another word. Outside the window, the dim afternoon light filtered weakly through the thick gray clouds. Everything around me was so quiet, it barely felt real. No voices, no follow-up texts, no calls, just me, and a strange, weightless sense of relief after a truth revealed, not by me, but by them. I didn't need to expose anyone. I just stayed silent and let everything unfold exactly as it was meant to. Alexander had confirmed it clearly. I was his superior, the CEO of Innovated, the company they assumed I was just some desk worker for. In that moment, my family's kitchen became a stage where the masks fell, one by one, and no one could stop them. And Laura, my sister, the one who once whispered to Mom that Emily should pick a job that's easier to introduce, now stood frozen, beside a birthday cake that hadn't even been lit. She had tried so hard to impress her boyfriend with empty compliments and a picture-perfect family, but in the end, it was that very boyfriend who called me boss. I could picture the scene like I was watching a replay. My mother, so flustered, she nearly dropped the cake tray. My father, red-faced, gripping the edge of the table. And the relatives, those who only showed up for food and judgment, sitting in stunned silence, eyes darting around as they tried to process what just happened. And Aunt Margaret still had the call going, her gaze no longer curious, but something closer to respect. She didn't say much, just gave me a small nod before ending the call. That evening, I got the first message from Laura. Long, messy, a mix of anger and desperation. "You knew all along, didn't you? You let it happen right during the party. Mom's been crying all night. Alexander doesn't even know how to react. Don't you think that was cruel, Emily?" I watched the message pop up on my screen, but didn't open it right away. I made a cup of ginger tea and sat on the couch, letting the steam ease the tightness in my throat. I didn't feel joy, but I didn't feel guilty either. After about 10 minutes, I finally hit reply. Just a few lines, no need for more. "You say I was cruel? I was just at home. I didn't start the video call. I didn't call myself his boss. I didn't do anything. And if a single truth was enough to ruin the whole party, maybe that party was never built on anything solid in the first place." I hit send. I wasn't waiting for a reply. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom. The message was short. "I never expected you to choose this way to get back at the family." I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. Get back? Is that what they thought this was? I just remembered being shut out of a family event, having my role as a daughter dismissed, because my job wasn't impressive enough. I remembered quietly paying dozens of bills over 3 years without a single check-in. I remembered trying so hard to be accepted, to be loved, and now I was done trying. Around 10 p.m., I got an email from Alexander. "Emily, I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. I truly respect you for your work and for the way you stayed silent today. I've never felt more ashamed, but not because of you." I read it, then replied slowly. "Alexander, you don't need to apologize. Everyone is responsible for how they choose to see others. And don't worry, I never bring family matters into work, but I hope you understand now. Sometimes, silence is the greatest strength." I clicked send, turned off my screen, and placed the phone face down on the table. Tomorrow, I'd still go to the office like usual. There would be reports to review, meetings to prepare for, and a world still turning outside. Only now there was one difference. Starting today, they thus who once dismissed me, finally knew who I was. And without a single shout, without any accusations, I had made them go silent. The next morning, as I walked into my office, sunlight filtered through the glass panels, and I saw a warm golden glow across the room. The air was calm, as if the universe had given me a few quiet minutes to breathe before the day's noise returned. I sat at my desk, powered on my computer, and opened my email as usual. In the priority inbox, there was one unread message. Sender, Alexander Hartley. I clicked it. Subject, apology, and goodbye. "Emily, I don't know where to start, but after last night, I couldn't get out of bed. I was so tired, I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking, what happened probably shouldn't have happened in front of so many people, but at the same time, I feel a strange sense of clarity, especially about you. I'm not ashamed that you're Laura's sister. I'm ashamed that I didn't see her true self sooner. I can't stay in a relationship where basic respect doesn't exist. As of today, I'm ending things with Laura. Thank you for staying silent yesterday, and thank you for listening. Thank you for the way you lead. Quiet, but strong and fair, Alexander. I read it twice, then leaned back in my chair. I wasn't happy that Laura got dumped. I just felt something. Right, like for the first time, someone outside finally saw what I'd been living with for years. The things I was told I was too sensitive about, or too cold for staying quiet about. I didn't reply. There was no need. But about 2 hours later, as I was reviewing my notes, I saw that Laura was not the one I was looking for. I was looking for the person I was looking for. I was looking for the person I was looking for. I was on my own, reading the phone. I withdrew directly to my computer. Guy said, and management said, if you marry me, you can do this. I lost control. I wanted him to agree to the almighty program, and make sure now was the day I'd locked up, and got to straighten it up again. I couldn't give to myself, or my accounting up. I had a brutal day, and Iran was asking me ways, but no answers. I could only cry out of horror. Laura didn't leave because of anything I said. He left because of who you are, and maybe for the first time, he really saw it. Laura didn't reply immediately. But about an hour later, a new message arrived. You're right, but I really don't want to lose him. I'll change this time, please. Just this once. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I was past the point of explaining. When I left the office that evening, the early spring breeze was still chilly, but the sunset cast a deep orange glow across the rooftops. I walked to the parking lot slowly, without hurry, without worry. Maybe for the first time in years, I felt light. I hadn't sought revenge. I had simply lived my truth, and let the rest reveal itself. Laura had brought this ending on herself, and Alexander, once dazzled by the facade of a perfect family, had been a hero. I was 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 a hero. I went to the Star facility. And then, on my way home, I knew I was a hero, and I knew that I had found our little good friend, who we were to die for. Heat was burning up the air, and a few days later, Laura had shown up, and I saw that she was fine, but she hadn't shown up, and I felt so lonely. At the time, I understood that she was the one who I could not trust, and that she had already eaten everything up. I had lived through the heat, for a long time. She was the one I had been waiting for, but I had never been able to see her for a long time. I was finally able to face it, because I knew that she would find us. I didn't need validation anymore. I just needed to be myself, and live what I truly deserve. About a week after things calmed down, on a rare Sunday afternoon, when I decided not to touch my laptop, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I almost ignored it. But something made me glance through the peephole. My parents were standing at the gate. I stood still for a few seconds, letting my mind catch up with what I was seeing. My mom held a small bag, her face tired. My dad had his arms crossed, his eyes less stern than during our last call but still carrying that usual hardness. I opened the door, said nothing. "Hi, honey," my mom said first, her voice raspy like she'd just gotten off a long flight. "Can we come in and talk for a bit?" I silently stepped aside to let them in. No hugs, no warm greetings, just a heavy silence, stretching from the hallway to the living room. I poured some water, set down 2 glasses, and sat across from them. My mom glanced around the apartment, simple, tidy, and completely untouched by any presence of my parents. My dad spoke first, "About your mom's birthday." I said some things I shouldn't have. I stayed quiet. He looked at me, then continued, slower this time. "Maybe we've been a little hard. We should have been more careful. It was so nice to be alone, but it's hard to imagine. What made you so distressed?" When I looked again, I saw the mother looking at the last page of the mysteries. I'd only been at a couple of pages away from it, but when I looked into the book, I could tell you the opposite. You know, the most important thing in life. The easy thing I've ever thought of. That's the way you make up your mind. But, what's the point? I was just wondering. I thought you were closing it down. Without a second thought, it wasn't much. But it was something else. She pulled out a printed sheet. "We've thought it through. You're stable now. Your job is great. If possible, we're hoping you could help us with a monthly contribution, around $2,000, just enough to cover living costs, insurance, and some retirement savings." I looked up at her. $2,500 a month. My dad jumped in, as if afraid I'd misunderstand. "It's not much for someone in your position. We're family, Emily. I sat up straighter and kept my tone steady. What about Laura? My mom hesitated. She's not doing well after the breakup. She's down. Work's not going great. We can't pressure her. I let out a soft laugh, not out of bitterness, just because it was all so familiar. Laura was always the one who couldn't be pressured, and I was always the one who could handle it. I looked directly at them. If Laura agrees to contribute her part, 1,200 enough, it's 0 cents a month, I'll cover the other half. If not, I'll need a legal contract, one that clearly states when you both pass, all assets, including the house, will belong to me. Silence filled the room. My father furrowed his brow, his face flushing red. Are you serious? Are you seriously giving your own parents conditions? My mother sighed. Blank, not conditions, principles. I already spent nearly $20,000 0 cents on this family over 3 years without anyone ever acknowledging it. If you want me to continue, then things need to be clear. My mother turned to my father, her voice starting to waver. Maybe we should talk it over. But he shot up from his seat, slamming his hand against the table. He returned to me in his lifetime. Your father was always in possession of you, right? Let go of both hands. You were the problem, your mother's. You ruined my life. No, I didn't. I haven't ever failed my father. If you've ever had me covered, I've done it to half the end of the world. Mel Fazer. No, I was the father of my second. My father. Is my father okay? You're so wrong. Did you give him home from jail? No. Then you left me behind. He used to love me. He loved me. I stood too, walking them to the door. No hugs, no goodbyes. When the door closed behind them, all that remained was the soft breeze drifting in from the balcony. In that stillness, I knew another chapter had ended, and this time, I was the one who wrote the final line. After that day, my parents never reached out again. No calls, no messages, no accusations, not even an apology for the outburst that had hit my home like a storm, as if every disappointment in their lives had been caused by their difficult daughter. But I wasn't surprised. I'd grown used to that kind of silence, the kind that didn't come from shame or remorse, but simply from people who don't know how to speak when they're no longer in control. I kept living my life, quiet mornings with coffee, strategic meetings that ran late into the evening, signing deals with partners who once doubted a young woman could run a tech company. And through it all, I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped thinking I was wrong for saying no to being the backup wallet, the default caretaker, just because I could handle it. Because eventually, you have to understand, love can't be measured in monthly payments, and it can't be forced through a sense of duty. If affection only exists as long as the bills are paid, then it's not a sin to love, then it's not family, it's a transaction. I started cutting the invisible strings that tied me to the roles they had assigned me. I no longer used a family photo as my phone wallpaper. I didn't remember Laura's birthday. I didn't mark the holidays to send a little something. I no longer hovered over guilt-ridden messages. I learned to put the period myself, instead of waiting for them to start with an apology. One day, during a team meeting, Alexander, now officially our company's head of finance, walked in with an investment report. He worked with focus, professionalism, and always kept a respectful distance. We never talked about Laura, not once, and I appreciated that. Some things, when fully understood, are best left unspoken. That afternoon, as I left the office, it was drizzling. I stopped by a familiar cafe, choosing a seat by the window. On the wall was a carved wooden sign. Home is not always a place. Sometimes, it's a choice. I sat there, sipping a hot latte, reflecting on the path I'd taken. There was a time when I believed that if I just stayed quiet, gentle, and responsible enough, I would eventually be accepted. But the truth is, if you let people get used to disrespecting you, they'll start seeing your sacrifices as obligations, and your silence as agreement. I chose to stand up, not to go against my family, but to protect myself. I chose to set boundaries, not because I'm selfish, but because I finally understood. Self-worth can't be defined by someone else's pity or sudden needs. And if someone were to ask me, Emily, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you? My answer would be, I regret that it took me so long to realize I deserved more than what I wanted. Because real family is where you're seen as a whole person, not a wallet, not a stand-in, not the fallback plan for people who always put you last. I know my story might be hard for some people to accept. In our society, refusing family duty is often seen as ungrateful. But try stepping into my shoes, the daughter who was shut out for not being polished enough to introduce, the one who paid tens of thousands in silence, and never once heard, "Are you okay?" I didn't choose family, in the traditional sense. I chose myself. What about you? Do you think I was too cold, or did I finally learn how to love myself at the right time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes your story might be the light someone else needs when they're struggling between duty and freedom. And if you've ever felt alone in your own family, believe me, you're not. This is a powerful reminder that no one is obligated to sacrifice themselves for a relationship that only carries the label family, but lacks respect. When you learn to set boundaries, choose self-love, and stop letting your kindness be taken for granted, that's not selfishness, that's growth. Emily didn't seek revenge. She chose dignified silence to reaffirm her worth, and sometimes the firmest action is the very first step to real peace. What do you think of Emily? Was she too harsh, or was she simply protecting herself after years of being hurt? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more deep and meaningful stories about family.